All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to show you guys a quick run through of the new scheduling system in Powercode 10.03 today. So the purpose of the rewrite of the scheduling system was to make it a lot better. We had quite a lot of inflexibility in the old system. Some of the things we set out to solve was that in the old system there's really no way to set up a time slot. Everything that was set in there was really just a descriptive name. So we had things in there that people were creating like morning or afternoon, or some people would have 8 a.m. to 11, some people would call it 8 a.m., whatever it was. We wanted to have a consistent system to do that. We wanted a map so you could see it geographically. Wanted to make it easy for you to see prior jobs, easy to figure out the most efficient route for a tech, easy to use a standby list, and a whole bunch of other things I'm going to show you today. So those are the things we set out to solve, and hopefully you'll see we did all of that. So the first thing we changed was the method of setting up a schedule for an individual tech. So let's go in and take a look at that. So here's my schedule overview for my tech. So what a schedule is in Powercode 10.03 is it's the available time a tech can work. So whereas you used to create slots and people might have defined those as being for installs or service calls, now we have a separate system where what we're building is the time that a tech's available to work. And so in here you can see I've got my two techs. I got Margaret and Jimmy. And we can kind of see at a high level these colored areas at the times of day at a high level overview that they're available to work. So I can kind of see where I have gaps. I can see where I have overlap. So we're going to go in and make a new schedule for my tech Lester. So when we go in and make a schedule, what we're really building is saying these are the work hours for this tech. This is when he's available to do work. And so I'm going to say Lester works on Tuesdays. He starts at 8 a.m. He works till 5. And he works on Wednesdays too. He comes in a little earlier. He works till 11. And then he has to go to his other job as a jockey. So he starts again at 1 after he's done horse racing. And then maybe he works Thursdays as well. So now that I've saved the schedule for Lester, you can kind of see in here the overlap that we have. Where on Tuesdays we got good coverage, Wednesdays we got good, we got somebody missing on Thursday here, but you can see those times I entered now show up on the days. Now what I built for that schedule was not a schedule for next week. This was a rolling schedule as the weeks go on. These are the times he works every week, and we'll automatically populate that as time goes out. So the problem you can run into there, right, is that somebody has a doctor's appointment or they're sick one day or something like that. So we can also do an override. And these overrides are date specific. So if I wanted to do an override for Wednesday, maybe he needs a little longer for his horse racing that day, I can block off 8 to 3. And if I save that, on that particular Wednesday I saved it for, which was the 6th back here, you'll see it's kind of blocked off in red that day that he's not going to be available to do any work. So that's kind of how we set up the schedules. It's pretty easy. This is just the work hours for the techs. I got 3 techs. I've got the work hours set up in here, and this is going to repeat week after week unless I come in and do an override. So the next thing we want to do is define the kind of work that these techs can do, because maybe, we have some techs that do installs and service calls. We have some people that only pick up equipment. Maybe we have some people that bring out Snickers and Doritos for other techs and things like that. So we can make different types of jobs now. In the past, we had installs and service calls. Now we can do whatever we want. So I'm going to go in here and we're going to start with a completion template. So every job type that you define can have a completion template defined with it. And what a completion template is data that we want to collect when a job's completed. So the kind of job I'm going to build is an equipment pickup job. And so I'm going to make a completion template for that called equipment pickup. You see we have this option here for signature, and what this means is that we're going to require that the tech collect a signature from the customer when they complete this job, and I'll show you a couple of different ways we have of doing that in a minute. So I'm going to require that for this. And then we can have different fields we can add to this completion template. So let's say when you go out and do an install, for example, you might want the tech to collect signal level data from a radio, or take a photograph of the install, or take a photograph of where the cable enters the house, or maybe pull a configuration file from a router. So for an equipment pickup, I'm going to say, I want you to enter the MAC address. Let's make sure it's the correct device that I think you're picking up. And we're going to require, well, let's say we're going to not require, right? We have an option to take a photograph of the device. I want you to take a photo. but maybe you can't get a photo, maybe your camera's broken, or maybe the device is invisible, so we won't require that. So we can have all kinds of different fields we can require here. I could have a number, length of device in inches, that again we can say is required or not required. So once I've added all these fields that I want to have filled in at the end, I can save that. And I now have this template that can be assigned to different types of jobs. So now we're going to go create the type of job. So a job template is really, again, just this high-level statement about this is a type of job that can be performed. This is the completion template required for it. This is how long it takes. So we're going to say equipment pickup. I'm going to say it takes about 45 minutes. Now, this is not including any drive time or anything like this. This is purely how long does it take to complete a job of this type. So you might set up an install. It's 2 hours. You might set up an install to be an hour. You might set up a service call to be 30 minutes. Whatever it is that makes sense. And you can make as many of these templates as you want. So the type of template here is going to be other. You can see we have a choice of service, install, or other. So other is pretty all-encompassing if it's not one of those. We're going to pick the template I just made. And I'm going to say we only have Les to do equipment pickups. He's not real smart, so I don't have him do anything other than go out there and pick up equipment. And you can see, again, we can do this on all these job templates. So, another example of how you might use this, you might have two different job templates like simple install, where we know all we have to do is put a radio on the roof or a router in the house or whatever it might be, minimal cable running. Might have one called complex install that we know we're going to have to put up a pole, or maybe we've got to run a lot of cable, or we got to run fiber, and we can make a different amount of time for that, and we can also make different techs that are able to do those different jobs. So for this one, we're going to just set this up for Lester. Okay, so now we've got some time scheduled my techs work. I've got different types of jobs they can do, and I got different completion templates for those jobs. So now we're all set up to start scheduling. So I know I have a customer in here, James Kirk, that needs an equipment pickup. So if I jump into jobs here, I'm going to select other. I'm going to select equipment pickup. I'm going to say, please pick up James Kirk's equipment. So I have an option here to put this into standby. If I don't do that, I'm going to go in and schedule it right away. If I put it into standby, it'll be put in a list for later scheduling. And I'll show you how that works in a minute, but we're going to go ahead and schedule this one first. So what you're seeing now is our new live view. What the live view is an overview of the schedule as a whole on a day-by-day basis. So this gives you a view geographically of where the jobs are. It gives you a view from a time perspective of who's doing what when. And it gives you a lot of other cool things in here we can do that I'll show you in a minute. So you can see I have my 3 ticks here. I have Margaret, Jimmy, and Lester. If we look at Lester, he's got nothing scheduled in his time slots here today. Jimmy's got a job here at 11:40. And it looks like Margaret's got a job at 11. So you can see these jobs show up on the map here. Here's Jimmy's job. Here's Margaret's job. So we can already see geographically where these techs are going to be at different times. And these have a 1 in them. There's only one job scheduled. So this is the first job of the day for that tech. So let's take Lester. I'm going to have him go pick up this equipment at 9. So now his is shown up on the map here. So you can see Lester's going to be kind of far north of these other guys. So if we had another job we wanted to schedule down in this area, probably doesn't make sense to give it to Lester. So once I save the schedule, this is now live. And one of the things that's particularly cool about the live view is if you have multiple people in this view, anytime anyone makes a save change, it's going to automatically update the screen for all the other users. So if somebody else is in here scheduling and they were going to throw something in this spot, as soon as I'd saved that, they would see this job for James Kirk appear there and they'd realize they're not able to schedule a job there. So you can have a lot of people keeping this open if you have a dispatch department or if you have people at well, or maybe even the techs are doing it themselves, right? But everyone can be in here and not be having to refresh the page and deal with that all the time. Okay, so we got this scheduled for Lester. He's going to go out 9 o'clock out to James Kirk and pick up that piece of equipment. So I know I have another equipment pickup I got to do for Randy Savage. So let's go and schedule that as well. So we're going to schedule this one as well. We're not going to put that in the standby either. So here's Randy Savage. This is a pickup. And you can see when I'm dragging this, it's graying out Margaret and Jimmy because I've limited that equipment pickup to only be able to be scheduled to Lester. If this could be scheduled for anybody, they would not be grayed out. But because Lester's the only guy we trust to do this, that's it. Okay, so you can see I put this job on the map. If I highlight the job, you can see there's a little line drawn between them to show the route between them. And the other thing that you'll notice here is this job kind of extended, and it has this piece hanging off the front. So that piece hanging off the front is a drive time calculation between the first job and the second job. And it's showing me, based on typical driving conditions, right, this is coming from Bing. It's not always going to be 100%, but it should be pretty close. Typically, it's going to take about 20 minutes to drive from job A to job B. So in the past, this was tricky because with the old system of creating slots, you had to do all these overlapping slots and, train people to put things into the right place. Now we're saying the job takes 45 minutes. I can see the drive time here is about 20, so this is the closest I can possibly put it. If I try and overlap it more, it's not going to let me. They start going transparent, and this won't let me save. So I have to align things so that there's at least enough time for the drive time between them. So let's give him a little bit of a buffer, and we'll put that there. Okay, so now we got the 2 jobs for Lester, and we got 1 job each for Margaret and Jimmy. So I mentioned the standby list a little earlier, and what the purpose of standby is you can create jobs and not schedule them. You can put them in a list that they need to be scheduled, but they're sitting in there waiting for someone to come in and schedule them. So the purpose of this is really so maybe you don't have your people on the phone dealing with scheduling. Maybe you don't trust them, or that's just not the way you do business. You have a dispatch department, or maybe the techs schedule their own jobs, or whatever the case is. People can create a job and throw it in the standby list. So when jobs are in standby, they show up in this menu down at the bottom right. And this allows people to filter through these jobs by a variety of different criteria. So I can look in all jobs, and I see got a couple in here right now for Roger and Adrian. And we don't know where these jobs are. We don't know much about them. I just know they need to be scheduled. So I can jump back, and I can look at them by type. I can look at them by the template. I can look at them by the city they're in, or I can look at them by length. So maybe I'm looking for short jobs to fill a small space. Or maybe in this case with Lester, I'm looking for jobs around the Cedar Grove area because I know he's going to be there. Well, we got 2. So let's go ahead and pull Roger out. So when we pull a job out of standby, it flies into the workbench down here. And I can go ahead and drag this up into the schedule. Okay, so now I look at this, I can see 1 and 3 are overlapping. Well, it really doesn't make sense for me to have him leave Cedar Grove, drive all the way over here, and then come back to Cedar Grove again. So I'm going to move these around, and I'm going to schedule these. You can see the drive time between these is very minimal. We got a 5-minute drive time showing up in this tooltip with a little car icon. So I'm going to put those right after each other, and then I'm going to move Randy over here to be 3rd. So now you can see very easily I've been able to make this schedule more efficient, whereas in the past people would have to pull out Google Maps or something and look at where things were located. On this live view, it's really simple for me to figure out the best order to put things in. I mean, worst case, I can just drag stuff around, let the drive time calculate and see. But you can tell by looking on the map, if I zoomed in very close here, we'd see 1 and 2 very close to each other. But I can tell by looking on the map and by looking at the drive time what an efficient way is to build this. So last piece on the live view is we've got a little menu of buttons on here that allow you to interact with the job. I can pull down a work order, jump to the customer's page. I can complete the job through here, which is probably not typically what you're going to do. But you have the option to do that if you want to. I can throw it back in a workbench, or I can delete it. As always, all of these options are permission controlled. By default, most people cannot delete jobs. They have to be rescheduled or put back into standby. So I can interact with these if I wanted to go jump back into the customer account. I can do that from here. Okay, so let's go into, let's actually jump back into Randy's account here. So Lester's got a smartphone he takes to do his jobs, and I'm going to show you in a minute the new mobile interface we've built to make it easier for these techs to work in the field. But, sometimes you don't have a smart device, you don't have a tablet or a phone, or you're going somewhere with no internet access and you don't trust you're going to be able to pull it up. So you can always pull work orders. I can come in here and download this work order for this job. And this is going to export as a PDF. I have all my data in here, when it is, where it is, what the customer ID is, what type of job it is, how long we think the drive time is, the notes, the contacts. If he had any equipment, it would show here. One of the things I wanted to show you is even if you can't complete on a smart device, you can still do the completion template on the work order. So we had the requirement to get the MAC address, the length of the device in inches, and then there was a statement to collect an image. Difficult to do that on a piece of paper, but it will tell you to do it there. And we required the customer signature, so there's a space for a signature, a printed name, and a date. So if you want to work with work orders and you want to do this on paper, it's pretty easy to do. But the way we'd really expect people to start doing this is through the new mobile app that we have. So let me go ahead here. You guys can see this. Obviously, this is not in a phone. I'm doing this on my desktop. So on a phone, this works a lot better. It looks like a native app. It's really just a web interface that you go to, but it works very much like an app would. And so this should work on any kind of mobile device, really, with a touch screen. So once I log in now, we have the simplified interface. This is not built to give you the entire Powercode experience on the phone. This is really built mostly for field techs to be able to do their work, get the data they need to, manipulate customer accounts, and see what they're doing. So you can see now I have my list of jobs, right? So we scheduled James, Kirk, Roger, and Randy, and they're all listed there with the times they need to be done and what type of job it is. So I see 9 a.m. is my first job. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it takes me to James Kirk's overview, tells me the type of jobs and equipment pickup. It's supposed to be done at 9 a.m. I've got 45 minutes to do it. Here's where it's at. If I click on this, it will actually launch the navigation applet on a phone to let me do drive-by, navigation directions there and the notes I put in. So the intent of this is you would drive to this job and then the tech would come and say check in. So when they check in, it starts a timer. And so this timer lets them know quickly how long they've been there, right? And we've scheduled 45 minutes for this job. So they're able to look at their phone and see the timer going up. Okay, well now I've got, 44 minutes and 45 seconds left to do this. The other thing this does is it also updates the live view. So anyone looking at the live view would now see I checked into this job and I know that's where I am. So while we're looking at this customer, there's a couple of different tabs you have to look at in here. We can look at the customer overview. Gives us a list of customer data, list of contacts, and we can see all the contact information there for those. I can go back to jobs. If there was multiple jobs here, we'd be able to look at the different jobs. I only have one for James right now, so it takes us to the one we're checked into. I can go to equipment. No equipment on this account, but I can add pieces of equipment through here. I can also edit and delete. And then services. Doesn't make much sense for me to add a service when I'm picking up his equipment, but let's do it anyway. If I add a service, we're able to do the prorating on here. And the purpose of having these functions on here is really for installs as much as anything. Now, that field tech can come in here and he can add the customer's equipment, set up the services, flip the account to active, all that kind of stuff, without having to pull out a laptop or log into the desktop interface. So you can kind of see we got this glowing bar as well. This is always shown on every page. When we're in the middle of a job, we're checked into it. It's reminding us, hey, you checked into this job. We need to finish it. So I'm going to go back to that. So we've been here for 1 minute and 30 seconds now. It's about how long it really takes Lester to pick up equipment. We give him 45 minutes because sometimes he can be kind of slow, but he was pretty quick today. So when we complete the job, we get a choice. We can either mark it as success or fail. So failed jobs, we have a report in Powercode that's going to show these. They can be rescheduled, or we can follow up with the customer, or whatever it is we might need to do to deal with a failed job, we can do that. And I'm going to mark this one as successful. So if you imagine this on a touch screen, what you would have now is a field to enter the MAC. I'm going to put in my MAC address. On a regular phone, when you have this option to take a photo, it's going to give you an option to use the camera on the device to actually take that photo and upload it to make it easier. I'm going to say this is a 12-inch device. And then we have a field here for the customer to sign. So whether you're on a phone or an iPad or whatever it is you might be using, you can then hand this to the customer and say, okay, I want you to sign your name. I'm not very good at signing with a mouse, but there you go. That's what my signature looks like. So then they can sign on the screen and we store that. So this is very like the contract redirect. If you've played with that in Powercode where the customers can sign on the screen, it's the same function. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that, and then they'd get a little box on their phone that says they completed it. Then they can go back, see the job's completed, and I can move on to the next one. So now I know this is where I need to go. I can pull up the map and get my navigation there if I want to. So once we've done that, if I go back into here, and I'm going to look at the live view, Can now see James Kirk's job is kind of grayed out here with a check mark. Now it's completed. So if I'd been watching this in real time, we would have seen that happen in real time. And I can go back into James Kirk's account, look at the job, and I can view that completion data, and you can see the data that was input. And then we're also able to pull this as a PDF with a customer's signature if we needed that for any reason. So you can have as much data stored here as you want. You could have 100 fields they have to fill in if you want to, but this allows you to get just a real quick view of what the tech entered when he completed that job. Okay, so let's go back to Lester here. So he, is in the mobile interface right now. What we're going to do is jump over into the desktop view as Lester. One of the last things I want to show you in here is there's a calendar view for these techs as well. So when they come into work in the morning or they leave from the house or whatever they might do, if they don't have a mobile device or they want to see a list of the jobs in the desktop interface, they have this new calendar they can look at that you can look at on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a daily basis. I can flip through the days. So today you can see I've already completed this job, so it's grayed out as finished, but here's my next two jobs. So I can jump into these customer accounts and look at them. I can see what time I'm supposed to be at places, how long I'm supposed to be there for, what the drive time is going to be. And I also have this button up here to download work orders. What this gives me is a merged PDF that I can print of every work order for the day and all the data on it. So every day, if I'd prefer to work off paper, I can just log into my calendar and I can click that button to pull those work orders down. The other thing we can do is we can sync this, so we can get an iCal file out of here and we can pull it into a Google Calendar, or you can pull it into your phone, or anything else that's going to be able to open that kind of file. So that's kind of a quick overview of how the new scheduling system works. We got a few of the things we're going to finish before release. There's going to be a dashboard for the install, much like we did for ticketing and the financial dashboard and network and all that kind of thing. We'll be able to see stats on the installs as a whole across the system. We'll be able to see, a leaderboard of who's completing the jobs the fastest and that kind of thing. There'll also be a lot of reports that'll be in there as well. But the hope is that really the live view is going to give most people the tools they need to kind of work through day by day and see what happened in the past. This is in beta right now. We have about 15 customers running it today. If you are a member of the beta group on the forum, you'll be able to log in and see it there, and you're able to download and install it if you want to. And the goal is for us to get this out here within the next 30 days or so as a public release. So that's it. Thanks for attending. Will be a video online if you want to review later, and if you have any questions or comments, please visit our forum at powercode.com/forum or send in an email to support@powercode, and we'll get back to you. Thanks.